most of the caddis we see, I mean, I could tie tan caddis. It's probably going to match like 20 different mayflies. There's just so many different caddis out there, but the key size is 16, but then there's some 14s out there too. So when we were out at First Fork, there was a light 16 and a dark 14 out there. And Dave fished the 16, I fished the 14, and they seemed to. I mean, I got a lot of fish, but every cast with Dave on the 16, you know. But if it's just 14s, you want 14. These fish, you know, the longer they're in these streams or the farther you get into the season, they get really picky when it comes to size. Not as much as color, but it's that size. So we're going to do both. We're going to do a 14 and a 16, and I tie a 14 differently than I tied a 16. So I've got 14 and 16 hooks over here. So, you know, tie one of each, and then with the extra time, I would, you know, if you can handle the 16s, just do them in 16. You know, 80% of my box is like 16 caddis. 18s, you know, is a good one, but it's kind of small to start out with. But, you know, it's really not that much more difficult except with, you know, sight, doing an 18 from a 16. So we're using, I got the Itchy 1100s, which is a standard dry fly hook. I also have these are 1100. Okay, 1180 is the standard. The 1100 has a slightly wider gap and a bigger eye. If you have a hard time threading, you know, this is a really nice hook, the 1100s. And then a spinner hook, straight eye is 1110. The older I get, the more I kind of go into the bigger eye hooks. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to, well, we're going to, and then the 14 is an 1180. So we're going to start out with the 14. So here's why I tie this reinforced. And one reason is because I have a palmered hackle, kind of like a woolly bugger, you know, where you're palmering the hackle through the body. You catch a toothy brown, you've got a lot of stem exposed. And because the stem is fine on these, you know, you break the stem, the fly's gone. I mean, you can cut it all off and just use a non-hackled elk hair caddis, which works pretty good when fish are taking them on the surface. So, and I'm gonna have to use my magnifiers even on this 14. Could somebody get me a spool of copper wire? Hey, Mike. Yeah. Could you, like, move it back over here or something? Pardon me? Could you tie it down on that corner here? So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're done. We're done. We're done.
Oh.
Is that what you need?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I should. Does everybody have? Oh, maybe we didn't pass everything. What I'm using here is fine copper. Camel thread. I use that a lot. I use that for anything that's medium to dark. Is camel uni, which is brown, light brown, or a medium, more of a medium brown. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is lay a thread base. There we go. Oh, that's better. Now make sure debarb and leave a small gap behind the eye for your finishing knot. And I'm just going to wrap this all the way to about the hook barb. And now I'm going to tie in a piece of extra small copper wire. And I use extra small because I don't want added weight. So this is a reinforced
That's a 40,
elk hair caddis.
or that's a 60.
And now, there we go. All right, so dubbing. We didn't hand out the dubbing, did we?
Not yet.
So the super fine selections, the number 1 I think is the one I need. Yeah, those are the ones I brought. Let me see.
I got some here. You want some of these?
No, this is good. This is good. So what I use on this, now I can do a dark tan, which you're going to see a lot of dark tans. Dark tan, light tan, and it's a medium brown. The brown stone flies that I see mainly are like a medium brown. And this also subs as a nice brown stone dry fly. But I use this super fine, the super fine number 1 brown. So we have our wire in. We're gonna kind of pull this out. Get that spread out on my thumb, finger, and then that's probably too much dubbing already. You don't need, it's not a thick, robust body. It's a pretty thin body. And get that bare thread in there. So now I got this copper right here. I'm going to lift that up and just get a couple turns behind it. Lay it back down. I guess maybe I didn't have enough. And it's not like a mayfly where I'm going to taper this dramatically from back to front. Caddis have more of I guess you might call it a cigar-shaped body. And now I need just enough. All right, looks good. That looks good right there. So next I'm going to do the hackle. And again, I'm doing this as an alternative to the elk hair caddis tie. It's just, like I said, we're going to have a longer body on here. So 14's, I mean, October caddis, that's a bigger fly. It's you want it reinforced. That first toothy brown's going to break the hackle.
Right in front of your vise. Hold your hackle right in front of the vise so they can see how you're prepping.
Oh, okay. So here's what I did. First of all, when you have your hackle, the base of it's usually a little softer, but more importantly, it's got a thicker stem towards the base, and you don't want to wrap with a thick stem. A thick stem's going to twist, and it's fat, and it doesn't really blend in well. So what I did here is I cut the base off, I stripped some feathers off, and what I'm trying to just get a little bit of a tag here. Now, how long do I want this little tie-in quill right here? It's going to be less than the bare hook shank I have left. So I'll put that up against here. I'm going to tie that pretty darn short so I don't have to cut a tag end off. And I could strip a lot more off and leave a big quill and clip that off, and I'm wasting feather. You know, these are not easy to get. They're expensive. So I'm going to put that there and clip a little more off. And now we want on this, there's two ways I can do this, but when I'm hackling backwards, it really wants the pitch of the feathers, the barbs, are going to lay back instead of forward as I wrap from front to back. So I'm going to put the shiny or dark side towards me. I'm going to put right here the bare stem, right where the bare stem meets the barbs. That's going to, the tips of those barbs, that little triangle there, is going to be right at the end of the body. Now I could tie 2 good wraps there. Now it's in good. So now, why am I like wrapping and wrapping? So right now I'm making a thread base. What's that?
Stem popped out.
Oh, thank you. See, even with the magnifiers, I can't see all that well. There we go. So right now I'm doing a thread base for the elk hair wing. And you want a base there. If it's too thin, your wing wants to slide around the hook shank, right? So larger diameter, more area to grip the hair. So now I'm going to make one full turn. Let's push these back. If you got stragglers that want to pop forward, use the reverse end of your bodkin. That'll get that lined up. I got one full turn. Now I'm starting to angle backwards. And I got 1, well actually that's number 2, 3, evenly spaced. 4, looks like I get 1 more. Right there. I'm going to hold that up. Now I'm going to take my wire. And I'm going to use my wire. Now I always make sure it's 1 full wrap on the end and not like starting your, working it forward. So I got 1 full wrap. But I'm also going to try to stand these up as perpendicular as possible. And I'm going to weave this thread, trying not to trap hackle barbs. And I'm just going to reverse palmer that up. And you see me going back and forth, and that's just releasing barbs, feather barbs that I had that were going to get trapped down. Now I'm at the front. Get those pushed out of the way. Now I can tie this off, and I'm going to make a few wraps here because I don't want to have that come loose on me. Hold that up, pull another wrap, drop it over, and now I'm going to pull tight and get that wrapped up where my thread base is going to be. And now I can propeller that off, but I just go back on the meaty part of these scissors and cut that off. So,
And hold up your scissors and show them what part you cut that with.
oh, right down here.
Let me back the camera.
Right
just
down
there.
here. I don't know if you guys ever like try to do the propeller method where you just take the wire and spin around, and it usually breaks right there. But I've had it, like I'm going to reuse this wire. I've had my end up kinking my wire or whatever. I'm not very good at it, so I don't use it, that method. So now I'm just kind of cleaning this stragglers. Not that it really matters. It matters to me, I guess, it's all going to get hit in there. Get that guy out of the way. So there. So now that's reinforced. Oh, and get right in the back here and clip that feather off. It's kind of like a woolly bugger, right? We taught that woolly bugger where we wrap the hackle backwards and chase it back up with the wire, you know, and it's a reinforced woolly bugger. So, you know, if that hackle does happen to break or whatever, usually the fly will stay together. So, that's it. We got one more step. Get that base built up a little more. There. By the way, we're using 8/0. Did I mention that 8/0 unithread camel? I don't use 6/0 because right at the deer tying point, I don't want a lot of bulk there. You know, we don't have a lot of room. We don't really need a lot of room. So next is the elk. You get elk in dark and light, but if I get the dark, but I kind of look more for like a medium. And I pretty much do all my Caddis with medium, either deer or elk. Occasionally bleached, you know, if ones I fish late in the day, I could see the wing better.
But body hair, not tail.
Right, right. This is elk body. You know, stuff we have out there is already.
Than the other, like is elk hair more buoyant or is deer hair more buoyant than elk?
Well, elk's thicker. The hair's thicker, so that's going to be more buoyant. Okay. Right. The reason I don't use deer hair, I use elk instead, is you need more deer hair to make a wing, or it's going to come out sparse, which means I've really got to make really good wraps. I would need more room because I've got more bulk now. So I would have to end the body down, you know, short, get the deer hair in there. Elk is nice, and you want it to flare. So like with deer hair, and you got a short wing, and you've got deer hair, say, with long tips, and you cinch that down. As you cinch it with your thread, you know, you want that flare. And with deer hair with long tips, you're just not going to, there's no hollowness there to flare. So how much elk do I want is, you know, I think somebody had mentioned about the size of a blue tip match. Pencil lead on a number 2 pencil. So I'm going to clip a small bunch. Usually, you know, going to err on the, you know, quantity, you know, large quantity, because you can pull some out. So I'm going to get this together, and the secret of good stacking is to get all the fuzz out. You know, a good pet comb, like if you're using, especially with deer hair, because you'll get a lot of fuzz. Get that under fur out of there, because it hinders stacking. The hair doesn't want to slide against each other. So I got that, and I use a small stacker. Actually, I'm going to hold these by the tips, and I'm pulling out. And you don't want, elk hair is a little larger diameter. You don't need as much elk to make a wing. I got a little rubber pad at home on my desk, so I don't wake up the neighbors or the household if I'm tying in the morning. It's like, what's Dan building now? So now, when you remove the cylinder, you want to point the tips the direction you want to tie it in, right? Say we're doing a mayfly with an upright wing and we got hair, we're going to tie that forward. This, we want it laid back, so it helps to have the tips pointing the same direction. So you're not switching hands and trying to turn it around, because when you start doing that, all of a sudden the hair gets uneven. So, like I said, I don't use a lot of hair. Oh, I'm ahead of myself. We want to cut this hackle off the top, and we're almost kind of making a pocket for the hair. So give it a haircut. Now, when we do the 16, we're going to prep the wing a little different for tying. But on this 14, and you're a beginner, A lot of problems beginners have after they tie this is the hair starts falling out of the fly. You know, it's loose. They catch a fish, you start losing two hairs, and now it's loose, and then the wing just keeps coming apart on you. So you want it secured with the least amount of wraps as possible. So now my wing is going to be just past the bend. The tips of the hair are just past the bend of the hook. I can switch hands. I'm going to give that, like Mike showed last class, a counterclockwise spin to make this thread jump back. Here's a critical part now. We already have a hackled body, so we don't want thread on that hackle because we're going to push that hackle's perpendicular. If we get a little too close, you know, that thread onto the hackle, it's going to make it tip backwards. Now we're going to have straight, we're going to have back, you know. The fly will still work, but looks a lot nicer in your fly box when so I'm going to take 2 loose wraps right behind there, and I'm going to keep holding that wing, and you're going to see the front end flare, and hopefully the back end's going to do the same thing when I let go. I'm going to make one more tight wrap there, let go, and I'm literally short. Am I?
A little bit.
Okay, hold on. Let me move that back a little bit. There we go. Again, I'm going to do 2 knot, making sure I don't catch my hackle fibers. 2, hold it on top, push down, and I'm going over the same spot. So now if you're a beginner and you struggle, you break a thread, you're struggling with this tie-in here, and you really, when we do deer hair, is when it really will fall apart if you don't get these tight enough. So I'm going to bring these forward. There's my wing. So here's the thing. If you really want this secured, we're going to tie this hair down in 2 more steps. I'm going to lift some of this hair up, get a couple wraps here, tight, and then I'll lift the rest of this hair up and secure it. So actually, like 2 tighten, or if you got room, 3 tighten. I probably could do a 3rd one. So I just did it in little sections of hairs, and that's a lot easier to get it secured and not worrying about it falling apart on you. You know, you don't have that bulk and trying to hit that thread on that same area. So you do it in sections. You tie it down, lift a little bit, make a couple wraps, lift up, pull up a little more, make a couple wraps, and that wing's not going to go anywhere. So now I'm about done, and I just use half hitches on this because I got all this out of the way. So this is there. That's secured. Cut out the thread. Here. Now I can see. Okay, so we're almost done. Caddis, when the fish look up at them, have a triangular head. So what I do here is I'm going to get this, I'm going to take my thumbnail, I'm going to try to flatten what's on top, and I'm going to cut this. I'm going to use my scissors. The base of my scissors is going to be right up against the hook eye. Right there. Oh, let me grab all my hair. Right there. Lay this straight as possible. Clip. And I've got a triangular head. Clean that up a little bit. Looks good. It's really a quick tie. Explaining it takes longer than actually tying it. So now, I glue these. If you think your head's a little longer, you could trim those out. You know, if you got like a stray, maybe a tip that's broke, it's sticking out here, you can get in there and clip that out of the wing if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a drop of glue right between the head or two, right there, and then I'm going to kind of comb that up the elk hair. If I want to flatten that a little more, I can always press down and let it dry like that. And because I did half hitches, I definitely need to glue that knot. And that's it, almost. Here's something you can also do when you're done. To ensure that this rides right side up and not tipped over, you know, this way, I will follow that little hook point there and just give those center ones a little bit of a haircut, almost forming a triangle there. So I don't know if that's going to stand like that on the water. Dark, you know, that's brown. Don't pass that around. Or, I'll go on the next one. So now we're going to do a 16, where it's going to be a little different.
Let me have that one, and I'll take that around while you
Sure.
for your next.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Instead of doing the 16 right now, wait a little bit towards to tie this one. Then when we're ready to do the 16, you have a better chance.
Well, the 16, you probably start out with the 14, and we can help you with the 16s. Here's a 16, because really it's pretty much the same. It's just, you'll get it. And this is, because this is how you're going to tie a majority of your flies.
This fly works real good on our pond out there too. Just get her and crust it off. Dave and I were out
Yeah.
one day.
Well, that fly in particular, you load it up with floatant. Now here's the thing. I've had it where the fish are taking those flies on the film. I carry an old pair of tying scissors in my bag. I will give that a haircut and cut all the hackle off the bottom of the fly so it lies flush. And sometimes that's the way the fish want it. So the 16 is going to take no time at all. We're going to start out the same with a thread base. I mean, if you guys want to tie and just go straight to the 16, don't tie a 14. It's all up to you, whatever you guys want to do. So now instead of tying the wire, I'm going to tie the hackle in. And I'm going to prep that, get that fat stem out of there. Still a little fat there. And so now I'm going to prep this like I did the other one, except I'm going to give myself a little more quill exposed. And we're going to do it with, I'm going to try to do this with the dull side or the concave side forward. So I'm tying this way. Catch that right where the barbs stop, and I will get this. If it quits slipping out of there. There we go. I could tie the rest of that stem in. You know,
Vegas stays in Vegas? Hey, that was a fun
and that is going the right way. So then we do our body. I'm going to do this with super fine. Maybe it's in this one. There it is. Super fine tan. So we could do this light or dark. And this one takes far less time. Get that started back here to the feather. Make 2 wraps behind the feather. It also protects the feather on the back side. Stands it up a little bit. Here we go. Now we're going to palmer this forward. See, we're leaving a little bit of a dud body on the back end. 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe that was 6. Bring this over, drop it down. Bring it over the top, drop it down, pull, and that's pretty well secured. I'll add a couple more wraps.
No, brown, light brown.
Lock that in. Tie this off. Give it a haircut on the top. Make sure I have a good base for my elk hair, which helps from keeping it sliding around the hook. Gives it a nice secure place to tie it in. Small clump of elk hair. So what I need you to pay attention on how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to tie in the hair. Here's where, once you get better, you can do this, and it's just quicker. So I've got the hair. I got on top the fly. I'm going to turn it. Now I cannot move that wing, because what I'm going to do now is clip the hair first instead of last before I tie that in. And I cut that. Again, I use the hook eye as a backstop against my scissors. I cut that. Now my hair is already trimmed. I'm going to take those couple of loose wraps, pull, take a couple more wraps. Now here's where I'm going to add more wraps to it, because we're not going over that. Then I locate my bodkin, or use a half hitch tool on the back. And isn't this much quicker, but it's not as durable.
Is that because there's no wire?
Yeah, it's less steps.
You also don't get that clean triangular head.
No, you don't. But, it's what I'm going to do. So, I got a couple fibers that wrapped around the bottom. I'll clip those out. But all in all, that's done. Except for, like I said, with these, I want durability. I like durability in all my flies. Means I don't have to tie as many, you know. I don't have, you know, it's getting dark and then I got to switch flies because that one's falling apart. Kind of like durability. Got that. And that's done. That's about how long it should take you, right there. And again, I'm going to draw that, look at that hook point, and just get almost a V. Boom. And that's that. So that's the second way is the quick way.
Hey, and I remember you also showed us one way where you tied the wing in front of the eye and then folded it.
Right, when we tied it with, you're right, when, so I would have, if we did it that way, you know, Phil asked about tying it where we had the tips pointing out the front of the fly, the hair tips. So I would have actually, this is where you always want to take this same direction. Here, we tie it, and that was called, that when we did it with deer hair, and it's called a deer head caddis. But we tied a black stonefly, which is the same. Basically, they're they flutter high above the surface. So that's a deer head. That gives you a hollow head too. Now originally, I think those were tied actually without any hackle. So that deer head actually helped float it,
Yeah.
right? So that front end's not sinking and then the whole fly starts going down. But that's,
Now, would you use gink on this, or would you use the frog's fanny on this?
it doesn't matter.
Either one.
So here's the thing with the gink. The gink will keep your wings together real nice. The frog's fanny will give it it'll look like a bad hair day. You know, the hair just seems to pop out. Have you noticed that, Mike? With that, with the wing, it gets, I catch them both ways.
Yeah, gink is better.
Well, it
I'm not
depends
gonna
on-
say it's
depends on
better.
what you're looking for. If you want something with a lot of buggy, everything, all the fibers protruding and spreading wide, the powder gets between the fibers and helps hold it spread.
Right.
Where the gink is like a silicone base, you're greasing up your fly. I personally prefer the gink because I don't have to reapply it every fish or every 10 casts.
Here's the thing.
It lasts for about 15 minutes.
Here's the thing with caddis. Caddis on the water barely sits still. They're moving. Even when they're emerging, like on a windy day, you get a nice flat water, and if you really look, if, you know, with the granums, or it's real cold, you'll actually see them walking across the surface of the water, trying to get to shore. So what I do, like a gink, I'll use gink, but when I fish this, I also then grease my tippet and leader. So everything's floating. So when that's down below me, I can let it drift, and then I can stop it. And let it drift, I could stop it. And it's just, you know, I've done this before where it's windy, and I got my, you know, it hits up there, and I'll try to twitch it, and the air grabs my line and blows it and lands back down. That imitates a lot of caddis. You'll see, like after a hatch, and you'll see sporadic splashy rises. And if it's like you think they're taking emergers. But what's happening is they're full, but they see this thing moving, and it's just a predatory instinct to eat it, to kill it and eat it. So they'll see, like kind of like playing with a cat, you know, trying to get it to pounce on something. You know, they'll see it and just automatically try to kill it. So, you know, I'll grease that up just so it makes it easier to move the fly. If you don't grease your leader, as you're fishing, your tippet and leader go under the water. Then as you pull that line, that fly tends to follow your leader. So if your leader's underwater, you end up dragging a fly under the water. Now it was nice and dry, now it's wet, now you're false casting trying to dry it off. But to keep it dry longer and being able to move my fly across the water, I grease my leader and my tippet. Make sure the front of my fly line is floating and not sinking.
Okay, thank you.
So go at it, guys.
Any other questions? All right, turning off the record.